Hi guys, it's Ryan Bailey here, bringing you episode number 16 of the Ball Talk podcast. In today's podcast, I was joined by former Miami Dolphins wide receiver Roberto Wallace. Roberto is probably best known in Ireland for his time with the senior football team in Breaffy as part of the toughest trade, where Aidan O'Shea went over to the States playing NFL, and Roberto came over here to get a taste of Gaelic football. And in this podcast, we talk a lot about that and about current COVID-19 restrictions and lifting of restrictions in both Ireland and America. I hope you enjoy the podcast now. I enjoyed it myself. It's a bit shorter than usual, about half an hour. Before we get into it, I want to give a shout out to the continued sponsor for the podcast, Adapt Athletic Performance and Therapy. If you're listening on YouTube, you can click the link in the description to their Instagram page. Otherwise, you can search at adapt_Sligo. You'll find the page, give them a follow, and while you're there, give the Ball Talk page a follow as well. We'll get straight into the video now, and I hope you enjoy the podcast. The whole restrictions around COVID-19 are lifting over here at the moment. So how's things going over there?
Same. Things are going back to normal. I think the last thing that we still had to open was the nail salons and tattoo parlors and things like that, and that opened up on Friday, so yesterday. But that's it. Everything else is open. The malls are open. Of course, gyms are back open. Things like that. I own a gym myself, so that was good news for me. But other than that, we're going back to normal. Traffic is coming back. It was nice when there was no traffic. Now there's traffic again. So I think the country is starting to open back up and kind of have some sort of normality.
Good stuff. And as a business owner, as you said, you have your own gym. How have you found the last, I suppose, 2 to 3 months? Have you been doing online classes and stuff, or?
Yeah, I did some online stuff, but if I'm quite frank with you, I still did some personal one-on-one training because I have some NFL offseason clients in town that needed to stay in shape. I have some other players or athletes, I should say, that didn't mind coming in. What I did was just kind of take as much precaution as I could. We wore masks, things like that, a lot of disinfecting spray going on. So did the best we can. And for a disease that is less than 1% chance lethal, it was hard to stay in, and being young and being healthy, I took the chance, and we were fine.
Yeah, good stuff. And I see, I saw from your Instagram story there yesterday, the bars and everything they're all back open up.
Yeah, the bars are back. Everything's back. We are happy that that's happening because we definitely been dying to go out and get a drink.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's kind of nice, But yeah, everything's back open. Restaurants, movie theaters, restaurants, you name it, everything. The beaches are open. I'm living in California, living in San Diego, where we have a lot of beaches everywhere.
Yeah.
People are happy that they're back open.
Good stuff. Like just to give you, I suppose, a taste of over here, like the bars and stuff, the pubs, they're opening back up next Tuesday week, I think it is. They're allowed to open back up, but they have to be serving food. They have to have restaurant facilities, table service, all that sort of stuff. So I suppose we're taking it a bit slower than it is in America or even over in the UK as well, but slowly getting back to normal now. Hopefully things will get back to normal soon.
Yeah.
I suppose we'll go straight into your time over here. Your time in Mayo playing with Breaffy. So the toughest trade it's probably 4 years ago now, is it?
Yeah, roughly. Yeah, it's been about 4 years now, roughly, and I miss it. It was fun. I had a great time. I do know that I want to go back to Ireland at some point on vacation or on holiday, like you guys say.
Yeah.
And just explore a little bit more, and get to know the country. I really did. Aside from going over there and playing Gaelic football and doing the whole program and the show and all that, I really enjoyed the people. Being there, your guys' country. The hospitality was amazing. People were very kind and polite, and I don't know if that has anything to do with the fact of who I am and what I do or did. But ultimately, I had a good time, and of course, the experience was one of a kind.
Like getting approached to do something like that, did AIB come to you directly, or How did it work out?
Um, so yeah, it's kind of interesting. So my agent is Conor McGregor's agent,
Right. Okay.
and he approached me with the idea that I would go over there. The whole thing, the whole toughest trade. And
Yeah.
initially, when he brought up the idea, I just remember reading his text message and going, "What is he talking about?" And at the time, once he said, there'll be some pay involved, some compensation. I said, "Oh, okay, I'm listening." And because at the time I was running a business, I was running a business just like I am now. It was
Yeah.
much smaller, and I was so busy trying to build it up that just the thought of going somewhere, and again, he didn't give me all the details. I didn't know much. He just gave me the concept, and I just remember thinking, like, I don't have time for this. I'm busy. I'm working a lot, trying to build a business, build it up. Long story short, once he gave me more details, there's compensation involved. At the time I was engaged, he's like, and we'll fly her too. It'll be all expenses paid. I was like, you know what? Why not? And
Yeah.
I went and did it. And I'm happy I did. I mean, it was a great experience. Like I said, it'll be a memorable experience. It'll be one of the things that I will remember forever. Just because it's so different. Me being from another country myself,
Yeah.
I'm not from the United States of America.
Okay.
It was really cool to go explore Ireland and Europe. And I've been to Europe before, just never really had a chance to really explore like that. So it was fun. I would do it again if I could. It was an amazing time.
And I know it's well documented in the program itself, but it's been a few years since it's been on air over here. You can get bits and pieces on YouTube and stuff like that. But I suppose to ask you initially, were you briefed with the rules? Well, not even the rules, the basic skills of the game before you went over, or did you walk onto the training field first day completely blind to what was going on?
I didn't. I'll be honest. I did not know much. We didn't know much. My agent didn't know much. No one on this side knew much. I spoke to the producers this way, like we're doing right now, from over here prior to flying out, and they explained the concept of what the show was, what the goal was, what the plan was, and it all sounded great. But I didn't really get the actual details of the game till I actually went to the first training session in Breaffy.
Mm-hmm.
And then I trained, that session of the show when I'm training one-on-one with that trainer. I forget his name, but
you were under lights there in
yeah,
the Center of Excellence, yeah.
Yeah. And apparently he's one of the best coaches or something like that in the game. And by then I already understood more what the rules were, the solos, the dribbling the balls, every 2 steps, things like that.
Yeah.
And then having the soccer background, it was easy to do that for me, soloing the ball back to me, shooting the ball, because I used to play soccer, and I played soccer for most of my life.
Yeah. And even, I suppose when you're working one-on-one with the coach, you're there, and I suppose you're like, you're going through the motions there. You're like, okay, I'm getting used to soloing the ball, bouncing the ball, that's second nature, catching and stuff like that. Bringing that into a game then. How did you feel going into that game that you played? Was it just the one game you played with Breaffy, or?
Yeah, it was only one game, and to be honest, I didn't know what to expect. I just knew that I was going to play in a game, and I was nervous because it was something so new to me. And even when I played football professionally in college or in high school, I always got nervous before a game. I mean, I believe as an athlete, if you don't get nervous before a game, then you're not human, And nervousness sometimes isn't negative, it could be a positive thing. It's just anxiety, it's excitement, you're
butterflies in your stomach, stuff like that.
Yeah, you're ready to go to battle, and kind of that's exactly how I felt prior to that match. And but the only thing that made me nervous was not understanding. Well, first of all, when I showed up to the pitch or the field and I saw how muddy and how thick that was, I just remember thinking, how am I going to bounce the ball on this,
Yeah.
But it's possible. And
yeah, you'll find the right spot.
Yeah. I just didn't know what to expect. And I think, when you don't know what the expectations are, it's of course natural to feel nervous, before a match.
And you how many weeks were you over here for recording?
The first time, I think we were there for 10 days.
Right.
And then we did the whole recording. I had a ton of fun. It was a blast. We left, came back here to the States, and then I was joking, and I threw the idea out. I think this is how it went down. I threw the idea out that, like, man, what if Mayo made it to the R-Line final? It'd be really cool to come back
Yeah.
because, you know, they were in the playoffs, they were doing well, they were winning, and
Yeah.
well, we're going to the R-Line final. So then AIB reached out again, like, hey, you know, they're making it to the R-Line final. Like, would you want to come back? I was like, of course. So then I came back, and that was the second time around that I came around August, I believe, that I was on the show called what was it, the night
Up
of
for the match.
I was on that show. Then I went to the game. I went to the middle of the field. Oh, it was amazing. That experience is even better. I mean, they were both different. They were both great, but the second time around, I just was more now comfortable. I knew what I was going back into. I wasn't going to play, so there's no pressure. You know, oh my God, that was so fun. I fell in love again. I was like, man, we did the Guinness tour. It was more of a leisure. It felt more like a leisure trip than a work trip the first time around.
And you got to see those lads that you would have played with there in Breaffy, the likes of the O'Sheas and Robbie Henley, lads like that you were playing with. I don't know, did you play with them in the game you played, but they would have played on them mucky fields that you were talking about, and then they're playing in front of 82,000 people in Crook.
Yeah.
It shows how, I suppose, how human people are, you know?
Yeah. No, I think the one thing, the misconception is that the sport is not a pro sport, right? But the players are elite level. Although the sport itself might not be pro, the level of play is very elite. The likes of O'Shea and Rob, you know, obviously I was a former professional athlete, so I could physically compete with any of those guys, but the speed of the game was different. You could see the quality of the game was much higher. The quality of the field or the pitch was much better. You could tell that you go a step up when you're playing now for Mayo than when you're playing for Breaffy. Breaffy feels like the AAA of the MLB or the farm teams of the NHL here. We don't have that in football. In football, it's just one level. But basketball, you have the DA, the D League, or things like that, you know, and that kind of is what Breaffy felt like. It's just like a feeder team where you go from there and you get bumped up to Mayo. But I mean, I saw those guys playing for the Dubs, and they, I mean, everyone, even Mayo, like the athletes look really good. You know, they look in shape, they look strong, they look muscular. They move well, they move fast, you know, and I thought that was impressive itself. And it's a game of endurance. It's really hard. I mean, I was exhausted playing in that field. It felt like I was running in quicksand. And so you have to have a high level of endurance, of cardiovascular endurance for that matter. I was physically strong, but my endurance was not up to par when I was in that match.
And as you're saying there, the elite, I suppose, physique and standard that they play at, and you going over knowing that this is an amateur sport, did that surprise you at how good a shape the lads were in and skillful and all that sort of stuff?
A little bit, but not a lot. I think I understood immediately what it meant for the sport being amateur and why, versus the level of play. For me, the label amateur was more so kind of a political thing than the actual physicality of the game. I know why the game is amateur and why it's not, you know, pro, where you have to now pay the guys. And I think that's what makes it more unique and was the most impressive thing for me. It wasn't so much the level of play or the physicality or anything like that. It was more so that the level of passion that is still transmitted all throughout, given that you're not getting paid to play a sport like that. I thought that was the beauty of it all. It almost brought me back to like when I played football in high school, where it was more about bragging rights and we're the better town, we're the better city, we have the better players, and that for me sometimes is more valuable than any money that could be paid. You know, if that makes sense. I played in a game where it's the complete opposite, where the level of play is extremely high as well. You got guys that are ginormous, muscular, big, strong, fast. But now there's money involved, and it becomes more about the money than it becomes about the game itself.
Yeah.
There's a lot less passion, and then I don't want to misconstrue this, and I don't want to sound ungrateful or say the wrong thing, but not that there isn't passion in the NFL. Don't get me wrong, there is, but it isn't pure passion. There's money now too. So
Yeah.
I thought that was really neat and unique. That over there, I mean, now your sport is very unique to your country. Don't get me wrong, but still, that you could be a player of that level, that caliber, play at those standards and not get compensated monetarily. I know there's other ways that the guys get compensated. Don't get me
Yeah.
wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but sometimes I'm sure, and I don't want to speak for everyone, I'm sure that there's guys on those teams that wish sometimes they would get paid monetarily to help their families.
Yeah. Because it is a big commitment as well.
Yeah, exactly. Time
Yeah.
consuming, etc.
Yeah. And going back to America then was like there are Gaelic football teams, whether they be football or hurling teams all over America. Was it ever something you considered to go play with a club, sign up for a club over in America?
Maybe a younger me would probably consider that. Maybe not now, just because my livelihood depends on me being healthy and having an able body. If I get hurt playing soccer, basketball, baseball, softball, whatever, it'd be hard for me to work. So that's one of the reasons why probably the only and most important reason as to why I probably wouldn't participate. I did go to a tournament here in San Diego. At one of the local colleges here, and I never realized that there was a community of Gaelic football in the U.S. So I thought that was unique, and I went there, and I think there's even some pictures on Instagram or Twitter that I posted of me talking to the women's team, which, by the way, that's another thing to me, that the level of play for the women, how impressive they are, they look. I mean, I was extremely blown away by that too.
Definitely, yeah.
That there's a whole nother, just like there is a women's basketball team and a men's basketball team, there isn't a women's football team, even though there is women's football team leagues, but not necessarily pro.
Yeah.
But anyway, I just thought that was really neat and unique that you guys also had the female gender, and it was at a high level. It seems like Mayo is the most successful women's team in Ireland,
yeah, they are. They're notorious for winning All Irelands. Yeah. I suppose going back to America then, did you go back playing American football when you went back then?
No, I was already retired. I retired in 2014, and I went to Ireland, I think, in 2016 or 17.
Okay.
So I was already retired. I wasn't playing anymore, but I still look like I could play. I mean, if you saw me walking down the street, you'd be like, "Oh, this guy definitely still plays pro sports." But I don't. I'm very well retired, and I'm happily retired. And I was just I work out, I keep in shape, but I'd be lying to you if I said I was in top shape to go play Gaelic football right now. I'd have to really stop working and devoting more time to training, which time is something of the essence. Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of time most of the days.
Okay. I'm just looking here. I sent out on Instagram asking people if they had any questions for you, and there were quite a few questions that came back.
Okay.
A lot of them are, I suppose, related to coming back to Ireland. And you said there you'd like to come back.
Yeah.
Come back on a holiday or whatever. Would it be a thing where you'd like to come back and have a similar sort of experience with Gaelic football, or would it be to see, I suppose, places in Ireland that you hadn't seen when you came over?
I think it would have to be some sort of a mix. If I could do a little bit of both, that would be fun. If I could come for 2 weeks, 14 days, and devote some time to maybe exploring the idea of playing a little bit or doing something Gaelic football related. Yeah, but absolutely, if I went back to Ireland, I would love to go for a holiday, go stay in Dublin, go out there and go to some restaurants, explore, hang out, etc. Whatever it may be, but ultimately not super structured. The first time I went to Ireland, we were on a strict schedule.
Yeah, everyone's down to a T. Yeah.
Yeah, everything was like, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to do that, and then this day you have this time off, and I don't know if I want to do that, but it would have to be some sort of a blend or a mix of the two.
Yeah, because like even when say we go over to America, like Irish people in general go to America, you can't go for a week. You've got to go for them 2 weeks.
Yeah,
You've got to see. I'd say like it goes the same way as well, because even though Ireland is a lot smaller, there is a lot to see as well. There's a lot of sightseeing to do.
Yeah,
I suppose that natural stuff that you wouldn't see in many places in the world. Just going back to the busy schedule you said you had there when you came over, did you get much chance to socialise with the Breaffy lads at all?
I did. I think a lot of those guys are really young compared to me. They're kids, I'm in my mid-30s, and a lot of those guys the lads are in their early 20s or sometimes even in their teens.
Yeah.
So I think it was unique just to see the interaction, and we're all human, regardless of whether I'm from Panama, U.S., Ireland, Africa, whatever, it doesn't matter. We're all human, and we all speak the same language. I could see that, the locker room environment it felt the same as a soccer locker room environment or a football locker room. It's all guys together, talking about whatever. And I've been there before. Even if they're younger, I've been there before. I know what it feels like. I know the culture and how it goes in the locker room, And it didn't feel any different to me than it did playing soccer locker room or playing in the football locker room, American football, that is. And we interacted a lot, but you could tell that the guys were a little bit shy, and there's some guys that weren't. Some guys that were very extroverted and talked a lot. And there's some guys, for the most part, most of them were very introverted. And I think that was just a little bit of the culture barrier, but not because, or whatever. I don't know. But ultimately, it was fun. It was fun. I was able to interact and communicate, no problem. And a lot of laughs. But I think it was more so them being more curious of me than anything else.
Yeah.
There's a lot of questions.
Yeah. What's he doing here?
Yeah.
Why are these cameras here? All that sort of stuff.
Why is this monster here? This guy's huge. That's another thing. I was pretty big compared to them, so.
Yeah, like there's very few, I suppose, that would have that physique. Did you find even in the game that you played, did that play to your strength?
No, I felt much stronger than everybody I played with. There's even a few scenes in those little clips that I posted where it was easy for me to just kind of put my arm on him and just kind of keep him at bay,
Yeah.
But throughout my whole career, I've always kind of been one of the more stronger players on the team. I've always excelled in that, and that's always my strength. Has been one of my strengths, I guess. And so it was no problem, handling that. And if I think I would have been in better shape when I was playing that match, it would have been even more. It would have been even more obvious. But running on that pitch is no joke. It's hard.
Yeah, like I suppose there'd be very little, unless it was in your early career, there'd be very little times that you play on a field like that over in America, would there be?
Yeah, never. No, we would never play on a field like that. But I don't think it has to do with anything. I think it's the weather as well. Like, you guys have a tough weather out there where it's constantly wet, it's raining, it's humid, it's cold. Or not even humid, but just cold in general, it's wet. Versus here in California, it's a little more dry, doesn't rain a lot. We have a lot of turf, artificial turf everywhere. Artificial turf is like the thing here. There's very little real fields, real grass. And believe it or not, I prefer real grass just because there's less injuries on real grass. There's more injuries on the turf because the turf doesn't give, especially when you're playing the cleats.
Yeah, turning and stuff like that can be.
Yeah, it doesn't rip like the grass. The grass rips, and you don't get hurt that way because it tears. But we would never play on a field of those conditions just simply because I guess we don't have to anymore.
Definitely, yeah, and it's the sort of thing that's very little of it over here. There's a lot of five-a-side soccer, AstroTurf pitches. They're actually making one where you filmed that one-to-one training you did in the Centre of Excellence. They're actually an indoor AstroTurf there. I think it's
Okay.
the first one. I know it's the first one, and it's definitely the first one in the country, anyways.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be a full size field, but it's going to be all indoor. I think they're
Oh,
currently working on it, so
that's
there'll
cool.
probably be more and more of them artificial fields over here. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
More
just looking
injuries.
more injuries. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
it. I'm just looking through the questions here now. They're all, I suppose, we kind of covered them all in different bits and pieces.
Mm-hmm.
I suppose going back to America, was there any things that you, I suppose, any, what's the word I'm looking for here? Any learnings, I suppose, that you took from your time over here that you brought with you to America, whether that be in terms of sport, in terms of culture, in terms of, people, stuff like that?
There wasn't anything necessarily that I learned that was applicable to my day-to-day life, but I felt like I learned more about the Irish culture than I've ever would have known in my life. And the one thing that I do know is that I left Ireland really liking Ireland, and I think it had to do a lot with the fact that I had a really group of people that were giving me, kind of guiding me, or I don't want to call them tour guides because they worked for the production team and they worked for AIB Bank.
Yeah.
And it was nice to be there with the locals, essentially. And locals that were explaining things as we went, were showing me things as we went, were taking me to the best places as we went, especially the second time around when we stayed in Dublin. We got to go to the restaurants and do the Guinness tour, and it was just a fantastic experience. I don't know how else to put it. There was not one thing that I would change from that experience, from both experiences, the first experience or the second experience. The first experience was unique in the sense that I got to see the more rural Ireland, being in Mayo. Got to climb Crowpatrick Mountain. Got to go to some local restaurants and pubs, as you guys call them.
Yeah.
And I really liked that because it was kind of the true raw culture.
Irishness.
Yeah, as raw as it gets,
Yeah.
And then you go to Dublin and it's nicer. It's a little bit more upscale or whatever. And although you still get the true Ireland vibe, it was more kind of like being here in the U.S. Going to the clubs, nightclubs. We went to that nightclub after the match or the show. Yeah, and that was crazy. I couldn't hang out with people because we went to the show, and then now people know what I look like, and we went to that club and it was crazy. It was insane. People wanted
you didn't have to buy a drink all night, anyways.
I couldn't go to the bathroom without having security go with me. It was just crazy, I was just like, I feel like I barely got here. I've only been in this country for maybe 14 days, and I'm more famous than I am in my own country, where I've lived my whole life, So I just remember saying to myself, maybe this is what it feels like to be very famous. I don't know, but it was cool. It was a neat situation, neat experience as well.
Yeah, I suppose the final few questions here. One of them is, I suppose you came over, you said you did the Guinness tour and stuff like that. You went to different restaurants. Are there any, I suppose, foods or drinks that you tried over here that you were like, this is a bit weird? Or you're like, geez, how have I not tried this before?
Okay. So the beer, I was told, I have a lot of video. I took a lot of pictures. I took a lot of videos on my phone. I still have them. I can literally go on my phone and look at all I could go back in time almost. And I just remember being told that the beer, the Guinness beer itself in Ireland tasted very different than the bottled beer, Guinness beer here in the US. And I just remember thinking every time I had a Guinness beer, it felt like I was drinking a milkshake or a protein shake because it's so thick, know. But no, it was delicious. I think the foods, like going to a local restaurant in Mayo versus Dublin, was very unique and different in the sense that it felt more authentic when I was in Mayo versus in Dublin, it did it, because Dublin, we went to nice restaurants, and you can go and have those kinds of foods anywhere in the world,
Yeah.
just because they were nicer cuisine and things like that. It felt like I was in any restaurant here in the U.S. or in London or anything like that.
Mm.
But the
Definitely.
more unique food was definitely in Mayo.
Yeah. Mashed potatoes, all that sort of crap.
Yeah, the mashed potatoes, the breakfast was different. The
Yeah.
breakfast.
Did you get the full Irish?
Yeah, the full Irish. Yeah, I was like, okay, this is the full Irish. All right, cool.
Yeah, I'd say it went down well.
Yeah, it did. I eat everything, so I had no problem eating. So.
Yeah. Good stuff. I suppose, Roberto, that kind of wraps up all the questions and stuff. Again, thanks to everyone for sending in questions, and thanks to yourself for coming on. I hope you enjoyed it. I've enjoyed it personally.
Okay, awesome. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
No problem at all.